Hi, welcome everyone to another Learn, Grow, Invest video. This video today, we're going to be talking with someone from the NHT. We're going to be talking about how to leverage or make the most of your NHT benefits. If you're home, well, if you are thinking about purchasing a home, or I guess I'd say from the point you start working, you might see this little thing on your payslip called NHT. So at some point in your life, in your working life, or when you plan to buy a home, you'd have heard about the NHT. What we find though is there are times a lot of questions surrounding, how to make the most of those benefits. What are the benefits? How do I participate? How do I get access to the benefits, etc.? We're going to try and answer all of those questions for you here today. This is going to be a great session. As usual, feel free to ask your questions, anything that you have that surrounds this topic, either post it in the chat, or if you're watching on the replay, just leave it in the comments below and we'll answer it. You're more than welcome to join us for all of our community groups. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Telegram. And we just talk about investing, finance, the economy, anything that's relevant and that will help us make better investment decisions. So I really hope you enjoy this session. I think it's going to be a good one. I'm going to open with a brief word of prayer before we get started. So let's go. Thank you, Lord, for this day and everything that you've brought. We pray, Lord, that as we seek to learn about this process of buying our own home, using our NHT benefits, that you'll give us wisdom, allow us to make the right decisions that will impact not just our lives, but the lives of our family. Bless this community, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys, I'm going to ask you to do me a big favor. Once we're here, let me know where you're joining from. Also, please give this video a like. It greatly helps us, and share this video with someone else. Try to bring at least one other person with you to watch this video. And if you're in our groups, share this video in the groups for me. Let everybody else know that we have started. It is my great pleasure to welcome Dwayne Burbick, Manager of Corporate and Public Affairs from the NHT. Hi, Dwayne. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you, Jeremy. A very good evening to you, and a very good evening to your viewers as well. Quite a pleasure to be here with
you. Yes, that intro is taking me way back. Yes. All right, great. So before we get started, can you tell us, just a little bit about what you do at the NHT, so that we can understand the perspective that you're speaking from and the information that you will have to share with us today?
Okay, sure. That's a tough question. What do I do at the NHT? Everything and then some. But the role is Corporate and Public Affairs Manager, as you would have indicated. It's primarily stakeholder relationships. So it's managing the relationship with our customers, managing the relationship with our contributors and the mortgagors from a customer standpoint. Also being a part of the discussion and the relationship with our mortgage providers with whom we do business, or developers, and just generally pretty much maintaining the pulse of the NHT in the marketplace to ensure that there is communication and that there is effective communication, meaning that I bring the NHT's messages to the various publics, and in that same breath also, I have to listen to the publics as well and bring that information in-house, and we see how best we can, whether it's make changes, work out new partnerships, improve on existing ones, managing the relationship with the media. Quite a bit, quite a mouthful, and then some, as I said. But at the heart of it, it's managing relationships with customers and generally our stakeholders.
Okay, great. So that sounds like you're definitely one of the best persons to speak to, because I think everybody here is an NHT contributor. Once you're earning a salary, it's mandatory. So you are likely going to be a contributor watching this video. So you're definitely one of the best persons to speak to.
I hope so.
All right. So for just in case there's somebody who maybe they're under the age of 21 or maybe 18, maybe they're not working currently, because some of our audience is actually around that age group. In a simple sense and an easy way to understand sense, what is the NHT and why do I need to know about it?
Well, the National Housing Trust is a statutory body, meaning that it's an agency of government charged with improving and enhancing firstly, the available stock of housing in Jamaica. Um, Translated into real terms, it's charged with improving the supply of housing. And on the other hand, we're charged also with putting in place the necessary financial arrangements that assist our contributors who want to either build, buy, or make improvements to property where they currently have already. And in the case of where individuals would also want to buy land, the NHT assists with those transactions as well. I would have mentioned the word contributor, and as you would have rightly indicated as well, that's where it all begins. Once you're between the ages of 18 and 70, in some circumstances, generally 65, but up to age 70, and you're employed in Jamaica, whether you're earning minimum wage or as much as possible upwards from that, it is a legal obligation that you should be contributing to the NHT, and it starts there. So once an individual contributes to the NHT, that individual maintains those contributions and keep those contributions up to date. Whenever they get to that housing goal, of course, they can rely on the NHT to be of assistance to them in the pursuit of that goal.
Okay, great. So I I didn't know it went as far as age 70. Thank you for that. That's definitely helpful.
Yes, and 70 would have been new, actually, German. That would have been a change we made within the last 2 years. Generally, we would speak of 18 to 65, but we do understand part of the role of corporate and public affairs is to understand to the dynamics and the changes in the market. And we realize that individuals are working longer, individuals are living longer. And so we made that change from 65 to 70 to give persons who are pursuing their home ownership goals a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more time, and a little bit more opportunity to pursue those goals.
Okay. And you mentioned, I believe, 4 key things, right? You said buying your first home, building,
Yes.
buying land. I believe there was a 4th.
Making improvements to
Making
property where
improvements.
individuals are
Okay.
existing homeowners. Yes.
So those are 4 different things, and I was aware of probably only 3 of them. I didn't know that you could use NHT as well for home improvement. So
Yes.
can we speak about the different benefits and when you get access to them?
Okay.
Okay.
Let me start with that second part of the question first. When do you get access to them? So I mentioned it starts with contributing, and every individual who contributes to the NHT after 52 weeks, they're eligible for a loan. So after 52 weeks of contributions, an individual is eligible for a loan. So I get the question, 52 weeks, is it 52 consecutive weeks? No, it does not have to be 52 consecutive weeks. Once we're able to account for 52 weeks of contribution, you're good to go. At the time that you're applying for the loan, however, to be able to access the benefit, you have to be what we call current with the contributions, meaning that within the last 13 weeks, there must have been contributions paid over for you. So we start there where eligibility is concerned. You have to be not just a contributor, you have to be a current contributor. You have to contribute for more than a year, and again between the ages of 18 and 70. So that is in a nutshell, the general criteria that we're looking at where eligibility is concerned. Of course, when we get into accessing the specific benefit and accessing the loan based off the type of loan it is and based off the purpose of the loan, then we add other requirements that may be necessary for you to access that. But generally, you can get a loan to buy, and the NHT's loan limit here is $6.5 million. And you can access that loan to make a purchase on the open market, or you may also buy from NHT's scheme developments as well. There's an option there. When it comes to those scheme developments, the NHT, however, adjusts that loan limit a little bit more. So we look at a loan limit of up to $15 million per property, right? So 6.5 million for regular open market purchases. When it comes to NHT purchases, the loan limit goes up a little. We go up to $15 million per property, subject to affordability, of course. I should also point out that two individuals can always pool their benefit, co-apply. So 6.5 plus 6.5 and make a purchase. If we're looking at loans to build, a nice one that I personally like that I don't think individuals often pursue. Again, it's a $6.5 million there, 13 million if you co-apply. And you can use that to do straight construction if you have land already. If you don't have land, then the NHT will allow you to break up that 6.5 into two parts. You can use 2.5 million that goes towards first to the purchase of the land, and then you will have the remaining 4 million for construction. Now, Jeremy, I get a question sometimes: why you don't allow me to use all 6.5 to buy
That was
the
gonna be my next question. Yeah.
really, if you think about it, if we allow us or you to use all 6.5 million and you buy land with that, I mean, you're not exactly a homeowner, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't really solve your challenge of needing shelter in its true sense. Yes, you may be a owner of land, but then many times what we find is that persons buy the land and they sit and look at the land, and the land sit down and look at them, and nothing really happens thereafter. So it's guiding individuals as to how they can better use that 6.5 million. So we allow you to use some for the purchase of the land, some for construction. And at the end of the day, we just really ask that whatever you build just is something habitable. So it does not have to be the full 2-story, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath that you dream home that you want. No, it's perhaps won't get you there either. But when that 6.5 million is exhausted, we would love for you to have what we call a habitable structure. May not be complete, but you must be able to live in it. So that really addresses your housing need. The other one I would have gone through buying on the open market. We've gone through buying from the NHT, gone through construction, and the other one now will be home improvement. So the amount here, the loan limit here, no longer 6.5, but we come down to 2.5. Why only 2.5 million there? Because when you look at housing demand in Jamaica and you look at the need that exists, we haven't satisfied as a country, not talking about NHT now, as a country on a whole, we haven't satisfied we aren't where we are as it relates to first time home buyers just yet. And so you will find that the NHT has a bias towards the first time buyer and will lend more to that first time buyer vis-a-vis the person who is looking to make improvements to the property. So unfortunately, only 2.5 million for home improvement. And there is home improvement where the individual bought a house not through the NHT. That individual can access that $2.5 million immediately to expand, retrofit, put in solar panels, anything like that. And then there is 2.5 million, a second loan that an individual gets after the first loan. So your first loan, 6.5 million you get. 10 years later, if you're a public sector worker, 15 years later, if otherwise, you can get a second loan of $2.5 million that you can use to make improvements to the first property that you bought, or in instances where you no longer have that property and perhaps you're looking to buy another one and you did not lose that first one through default, then the NHT will allow you to use that 2.5 million to go towards another purchase. I think in a nutshell, those are the general benefit types, but I think as the conversation goes on, I may find one or two other sweeteners that we don't often talk about that I can slip into to better educate your audience.
And that's what I'm hoping that we'll get to, because so one of the things that we haven't mentioned yet that I know we took advantage of, my wife and I, when we were buying our first home, was the CRTD, I believe it's called. A lot of persons we have told so many persons about that. We'll talk about that a little later though. Just some questions from the chat here I want to get to before we go any further. Kevin Morris is asking, does NHT offer a loan to purchase solar panels? I believe you just kind of alluded to that, but there was a particular context that would be considered home improvement. So could you repeat again specifically what you'd need to do to be eligible for that to answer Kevin's question?
Right. So to use it for purchasing or installing solar panels, as the case may be, that would be for the existing homeowner. You already have a house. You probably never accessed your NHT benefit before. You can access that $2.5 million immediately. If you access a loan from the NHT previously, then it's 10 years after the first one in the case of public sector workers, 15 years otherwise before you can access that second loan of $2.5 million. And you can use that to, as your viewer is asking, to make improvements to the property as it relates to installing solar panels.
I'll definitely appeal for that 15-year span to be reduced because, I mean, if you bought a used home, you're going to need to do improvements in a short time. So,
Sure.
I mean, yeah, I bought a used home. We've done so much in terms of repairs already. To wait 15 years, it feels like forever. I mean, usually if you buy a first home, you're kind of likely to move on within that 15 years anyway, but maybe you want to improve it to maintain the value of the home before you sell it.
I hear the point, and it's one that we continue to discuss in house. But as I think said before, the bias is always to the first time borrower, and when you think about it, Jermaine, you think about how much you would have paid in contributions probably over, let's say, a 10, 15-year period. NHT contributions are 2% of your income. Chances are unless you're in probably the 1% in Jamaica, those contributions won't come up to $6.5 million. So what that means is that when I make a loan of $6.5 million available to a contributor, it means I'm lending somebody else's money as well. And so we have to ensure that in the discharge of that we don't, that at all times, let me put it this way, at all times you're in a position to be able to lend to that first time borrower, because it would be a little challenging, I'm sure you will agree with me, if it is that individuals are coming in to access a loan and the existing homeowners would have used up all of those resources and there's not enough to lend to that first time borrower. It would be a little, for want of a better word, unfair. And so we oftentimes, cater to that first-time borrower first. But I hear your point. I hear your plea. And part of my job is to listen and to bring back that discussion. So
and if you need
continue to discuss.
If you need us to sign like a petition, because we have a Telegram group with almost 1,500 people. So I'm sure we can get, if you need multiple persons to give you that feedback, I'm sure we can get that for you. All right, fair enough. So Marcel is asking, what if you moved out of the country? Do you lose your contribution, and how can you continue contributing?
That's a good question. And one of the things I like to tell persons that your NHT contribution, it really is not a tax. It really is a savings instrument, because once those contributions have been deducted and remitted to the NHT, and that's a very important point, not just deducted, but also remitted to the NHT, those contributions will always be at the NHT. So for the person who, as the question is, you've contributed to the NHT, you've not accessed your benefit, you've moved abroad, one, your contributions are still there, and two, you can actually contribute to the NHT from overseas as what we call a voluntary contributor. Once you're of Jamaican descent, and we can trace that in any kind of way, you're able to continue those contributions from overseas. You just need to reach out to us, let us know that your status has changed from probably self-employed to PAYE or PAYE to, and now you want to register as a voluntary contributor. We will facilitate that process for you.
Okay, great. I'm actually making some notes here. So is there a specific way in which they make contact to let you know that their status has changed? Is there an email? Is there, how would they go
Definitely.
about informing the NHT?
Definitely. We're on all socials. You can always
Okay.
reach out to us there. And our email address is wecare@nht.gov.jm. And we will send
Okay.
you the voluntary contributor application form. And there are some supporting documents that we would need to, satisfy ourselves that your status has truly changed. And then, we calculate the contributions. Then it's 3% that you pay on a monthly basis, 3% of what we call your proposed income, because we understand, we use the word proposed income because we do understand that the circumstances may change a little
Yeah.
or are different for individuals overseas, whereas in Jamaica, chances are you only have one job, and the law in Jamaica is that, regardless of how many jobs you actually have, you need to pay your NHT and other statutory obligations on those income.
Okay.
Overseas, no, you're voluntary. And so we get into a discussion about how much are you comfortably proposing as your income, and then we calculate the 3% based off that amount. And you make those payments on a monthly basis.
Interesting. I never knew that. Thank you, Marcel, for that question. Hopefully that was helpful in terms of utilizing the benefits. We're going to talk about that soon a
Sure.
bit because there are some questions that I had already come up with. So I'm looking through the comments to see if there's any additional question, but there are some of them that we'll get to through the flow of the conversation. So Romain, I see your question. We're going to get to that soon. Um, okay. All right. So Judy is asking a follow-up to Marcel's question. What about persons who weren't contributors before they moved away? Is that they simply reach out and start that process?
Same treatment, right? They can reach out and start the process with us. I should point out, though, that when it comes to accessing the benefit, the individual who contributed before leaving Jamaica would have a shorter period of time between resuming those contributions and accessing the benefit than the individual who is contributing for the first time. The difference being 52 weeks versus 104 weeks.
Okay. Important to note.
Right.
4 weeks. Okay. Oh, a lot of little nuances there. Okay.
Yes. Yes. But
Okay, cool.
don't worry. Once you reach out to us, we'll. I mean, not everything will be able to ventilate in this forum.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
of course, once you reach out to us, our officers will of course give you the necessary guidance.
Yes, and that was our experience as well. I believe we visited the NHT twice. We got a lot of information and we were able to get through our process very, very smoothly. So yes, I can attest to that. All right. So the question that I have next for you is how do members now access? So you've accumulated those benefits. You've contributed for a minimum of 52 weeks if you're in Jamaica, 104 weeks if you're overseas. You now need to access that benefit. What are the ways in which we can access the benefits that we have available to us?
Okay. So, firstly, uh, I should say home ownership is a legal decision as much as it is a financial one. And so there are some considerations that would have to be made on both sides. Where financial is concerned, whomever you're buying property from, or whoever is the intermediary for the transaction, whether it's a realtor or the legal conveyancing attorney, they're going to want to know that the individual they're doing business with is actually, in a position to satisfy the terms of what we would call a sale agreement. So that individual is likely going to be asked to prepare or submit what we call an eligibility letter, which really speaks to how much you're qualified for from a financing standpoint. And really, it it's the mortgage institution, and this is not now unique to NHT. This is across the board that you would be required to submit that eligibility letter. So we generally say to individuals, once you've done your search, you've narrowed it down to a couple of properties, you're now very serious and looking to engage, you can always reach out to us and we will have that eligibility letter prepared for you, which says, Jermaine qualifies for X amount at the applicable interest rate and will be repayable over whatever time period. And that eligibility letter is useful as it relates to managing your expectations as well when you go to the market, so you know what price point you should be looking at. And if you're engaging in particular the services of a realtor, then the realtor will also know what price range to look in. Reality is we want nice and we want big and where a house is concerned. But the truth is we may not be there yet. Important word being yet.
Yeah.
And so we probably have to start somewhere else and gradually move along the process. So it makes no sense you're looking at 30-40 million dollar properties when you look at your eligibility, it is saying something otherwise. So you start with that eligibility letter. Once you've identified the property, then probably need to get into a relationship with your attorney to talk about what are the terms of the sale agreement, which pretty much is what are the conditions and terms under which you're buying this property, whether it be a house or land. And I think that's always a good starting point. And thereafter, a great attorney will guide you through the process and guide you, as it relates to preparing you for your NHT loan interview or your loan interview, whichever mortgage partner, and just generally guide you through the process. If you're looking at construction, then it's a little bit more involved. You would have to, if it's existing land you're looking to build on, you have to satisfy that you have permission to build on that land. Either you're the title holder or you have permission from the title holder to do the construction. There is also your building plan that you must have approved by your municipal corporation. A more involved process, as I said. And if you're looking at home improvements, similarly as well, the NHT would want to know that you have permission to be making improvement to this property, or to ensure that your property in and of itself is in good standing. So you'll find us asking for a surveyor's ID, to ensure that if you say you're building at 4 Park Boulevard, where you're actually building at or making the improvements to is not 4 Park Boulevard and not 5 Park Boulevard, because there are legal implications there of you building on the wrong lot. And if there are breaches and encroachments on the property, remember, we're lending you somebody else's contributions as well. So the NHT has to ensure that they're on sound legal footing to be able to recoup that should something go wrong down the road. So the process, as it relates to satisfying the loan requirements beyond the basic eligibility, I think the point here is that it varies from
depending on the purpose of
depending, as you rightly say, on the purpose that you want the loan for. But generally, you want to establish eligibility, you want to establish affordability, and thereafter, I would always recommend that you get legal guidance thereafter to ensure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed.
Okay, great, thank you. So, quick question here: how does the eligibility letter differ from what we call a pre-qualification letter that you'd get from the mortgage institution?
The eligibility letter looks at your status as we know it to be. You've been, and it's just checking those boxes. You've been contributing for the 52 weeks. You're between the ages of 18 to 65. This is the interest rate based off your income that would be applied to your loan, and this is what your payback will look like. The pre-qualification letter gets a little bit more detailed now, because we start looking at other well, for the NHT we use an eligibility letter, and we don't really use a pre-qualification letter
Yeah,
at
yeah.
NHT. We jump to another document down the road called a commitment letter. But generally, the pre-qualification letter for some mortgage partners is a little bit more detailed, because they start looking at income and expenditure, because yes, your income in and of itself may qualify you for $10 million, but your loan obligations now may, or other obligations that you have as it relates to expenditure, may say otherwise, that as much as, on the surface of it, you could get a $10 million mortgage, or a 12, 13, whatever is the case may be. When we look at these obligations, we are seeing a lesser figure. And the rule of thumb here is generally what we call a debt service ratio, which says 33 and a third percent. I know some mortgage institutions may have other, but a general rule of thumb in the industry across the world is a 33 and a third percent debt service ratio, which means that no more than, in ideal circumstances, your debt should not exceed more than 33 and a third percent of your income.
Yeah.
And that's where the
In some
pre-qualification
cases that might even be too high depending on the debt really, because yeah, but that's another conversation.
Yes,
But
it will vary from institution to institution, because you'll find that some would actually go up to even 45%.
yes,
So
I
it
know
will vary.
45. Yeah. All
Right.
right. So we haven't really spoken about interest rates yet. I think we'll get there a little bit later. So someone was just asking what's the current interest rate for public versus private sector. We're gonna take that question soon. So priority mindset, who asked the question, just give us a few minutes and we'll get there. So we've spoken about how persons can access their benefits. So let's say that I've gotten that letter, that eligibility letter. I've gone through the process. I have determined the home I want. I've gotten, I've signed the sale agreement. How do I? It's what would be the next? Well, let me phrase it this way. What would be that experience for the contributor from the first point of access to NHT throughout the process of buying their first home? Let's use that as the context. Since we spoke about four types, but let's just confine it to them buying their first home. What would those touch points be with the NHT?
Okay, so we're at, you've gone through eligibility, you've identified the property, you've signed a sale agreement, then you want to
Yeah,
come in and schedule that loan interview with us as
yes.
quickly as possible. So you reach out to us, you let us know where you are in the process. The NHT will provide you with what we call a checklist for the specific loan type that you're accessing, and you bring in those documents. If you're buying, as the example is, we're buying, so we want to see the sale agreement signed by both parties. We want, if the requirement is, generally the NHT gives 95% financing, so the vendor may require that some deposit is paid, whether that's 5 or 10%. We want to see the receipt to show proof of the deposit being made. If you're looking at uh, yeah, and yeah, I think those are the main documents we would want to see, and of course, verifying identity as well. We want to see your NIS, we want to see your TRN card, we want to see proper identification. We have to ensure that Dwayne Burbick is Dwayne Burbick and not posing as somebody else. It sounds silly, but it's a real
Yeah,
thing.
it's valid. It's
And
valid.
we're looking for consistency as well across documents. DWAYNE. If that is left off on one document, you'll find that your process could become a little stalled. And I saw a case recently where an NI on the TRN card, the individual has two middle names, and they are written a particular way. But on the TRN card, when you look at it, it's almost as though we write the name backwards. And so on the mortgage documents, the two middle names, the second one came first. And when it left the NHT and reached. Actually, it was the NHT that really realized when it came to the NHT that, hey, these names are not as they
It,
appear on the birth
it's
certificate
not
and
the
on the
same
TRN.
person.
And we cannot take it for granted that the names are the same, they're just in different order, are the same person. No.
Yeah.
We can't take it for granted. So it's getting as detailed and as granular as that with the loan application process that we're looking at to ensure that, as I say, all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed. And the funny thing is that it missed the realtor, it missed the attorney, so simple things like that can actually hold up your transaction. So you
Yeah.
want to ensure that and I can't stress it enough, that you have good advice, whether it is from your realtor, whether it's from your legal conveyancing attorney, and preferably one with experience that's going to look out for these things and to ensure that everything goes according to the process, and ensure that you're getting through in the quickest possible time, because generally you would have agreed with the vendor that you're going to complete this transaction in a certain time
Yes.
frame, whether it's 90
Yeah.
days or 120
120.
days.
Yeah.
I'll always say go for the most that you can get, because you never know what can happen,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
you have a commitment to undertake this transaction in this particular time frame. So you want to ensure that it's a smooth process when you come in for your loan interview. And if the NHT says bring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 documents, bring all 10. And if we require originals, bring the originals. Don't say, why them asking for this? It's the same information on the birth certificate in the passport. I mean, no need for
Well,
carry two of them. You just gotta carry one. No,
the way
please bring
I was
both.
actually going to say that I know we have that 90 or 120, 120 days. As the homeowner, though, or the person planning to buy the home, it feels from our perspective that there are so many touch points, because you're speaking with the seller, realtor, lawyer, surveyor, valuer. You have to go to the National Land Agency. You have to go to the tax. Like it feels like you are buying the whole country. The number of steps that you need to take over those 90 to 120 days. So I'm a very, like, I would love to see a point where everything takes 60 days or less. Like that's my dream, to just have some things be consolidated, because in our minds we're like, you have all the government, and it may not be fair to lump everybody in one, but they're like, you have all my information already. Why do I have to get document from agency one to bring to agency two when it's the government, right? And I know you probably get that from time to time. Why do I need to carry all these things to you
Yes,
when
and
it
it's
should
an
happen?
involved it's an involved process. It's a very buying a house is not buying groceries. Where you just walk in, I want that one. You take it off the shelf, you put it in the trolley, you push it up to the cashier, you swipe, and you go. No, as I started out by saying, it's a legal and it's a financial,
Yeah.
major legal and a major financial undertaking. So I hear your point, and I do agree with you, Jermaine, that we probably could be moving these transactions along a little bit quicker. But when you think about it, the number of agencies outside of your key players, of your realtor, your lawyer, your mortgage institution, I mean, that transaction has to pass through the stamp office, it has to pass through the titles office, it has to pass through.
Mhm.
There, and every institution, I take it, I take your point again, but I think every institution has to do their own as well. Quality assurance, and
Mhm.
probably are looking for different things. So they won't necessarily take it for granted that this individual would have gone through this mortgage institution, would have gone through the NHT. So the name is spelled correctly on the document, or everything good, man. NHT look on it already. I mean, there's a saying my attorneys tell me at NHT that the NHT's attorneys look out for the NHT's interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
attorney look out for your
Yeah.
interest. When he goes
Yeah.
to title's office, they're looking out for their interest. When he goes to stamp office, they're looking out for their interest. So I think because it's such a major decision and a decision that has such far-reaching financial and legal implications, that everybody that touches that transaction, it's going to try and ensure that they satisfy themselves that the transaction is above board and the transaction is you know proper. So, but I do take your point in all of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
60
I
days would be
mean,
perfect.
it can feel weary, honestly, because you go through it.
Hmm.
So I bought two homes currently. They never take 120. Both took longer,
Yes.
and there had to be some negotiation because of course there was concern because you signed the agreement to say 120, and
Hmm.
you're liable to pay interest to that seller if it takes longer. But there's always something. It's either you bring all the so you say, for example, if NHT says bring 10 things, you bring 10. Sometimes you bring the 10 and then you hear, well, there's an 11th or there's a 12th, and you have to go away and come back when you maybe took the day off to go and bring the 10. So this is not about the NHT, and I don't want anyone watching to think that. It's just the whole process, I think, could just be a little bit smoother in terms of, like, I wish there was just a very clear and transparent way from all the stakeholders to say these are all the things that you need to buy a home, and you can just go through a checklist, get all of them, and save yourself a lot of time. Because I mean, we, we haven't even touched on now when you got the home, all the things that you need to prepare, because it's not just mortgage is disbursed and you get the keys. There are more steps that follow. But
I say to Jermaine on this point, finally, my final point on this point. Um, uh, from where I sit, I hear, I get to hear the discussions from um, the prospective buyers, the persons going through the process. I get to speak with the realtors. I get to speak with the other mortgage institutions. And I know generally we're all on the same page. And I know institutions are looking at ways that we can simplify and speed up that transaction. I can't say much, but us at the NHT, we're working on something as well. That
good.
will likely get us through much quicker and with less interaction with the customer as well. That's something that
Amen.
we want to see the customer. Our ideal situation, we want to see the customer once. And our managing director says that's what we're working towards, seeing the
Yep.
customer once when the customer comes in to sign. And we're working on seeing how we can put the necessary framework legally. That's always a challenge, that there are some things that the law just requires documents in certain format and to
Yeah.
be done
Yeah.
certain ways. But we are really reviewing the process, I'll say, as much to see how we can cut down that transaction time and cut down that interaction with the customer so we come away
Yeah. Yeah.
a much faster processing time.
And that's definitely comforting to hear, because I mean, I assume it's a frustrating process for everybody involved, and not just the contributors. So thank you so much for that. All right. So is there a way for persons to know what benefits they're eligible for? I mean, apart from maybe reaching out to the NHT, or
Mhm.
is that the only way? So if I want to know, for example, that home improvement loan, is there a way for me to know readily that I have access to that? How does that work?
Well, we actually have a mortgage calculator on our website, and I think it's good to be alive at a time when most, if not all, mortgage institutions have a similar mortgage calculator on their website as well, which you plug in the variables, you plug in your age, you plug in how long you've been contributing to the NHT in the case of our mortgage calculator, and it will ask you certain basic questions, and at the end of it, you get a document that's printable that says these are the benefit types you qualify for. These are the amounts that you're eligible for each benefit type. These are the interest rates, and I think we go as far as to give you a rough estimation as to what that payback is going to also look like. So for the individual who is just curious as to where they are, what do they qualify for, they can always use the mortgage calculator on the site. For the person who is beyond just curiosity now, and that you're in the market, you're searching, and know my realtors are going to say, get that eligibility letter first, because that saves them a lot of time and a lot of headache as well,
Yeah.
as it relates to matching the right property to the individual. So if you're just cursory, you're just interested, you can always use a mortgage calculator, and it tells you where you are as it relates to benefits.
Okay, great, great. Thanks for that. So the next thing that I'll ask, so we've gone through that process. I believe I was mentioning before the CRTD loan. Where does that come in? Because that for us, we were able to use that to help with our deposit. Is that the only way it can be used? How do persons access it, etc.?
So as part of so you have two main tasks to do when you've decided that you want to become a homeowner. One, and I would say first, you need to find out what are the financing arrangements that are available to you. The NHT lends up to $6.5 million per applicant, but that is, of course, can be matched with funds from other institutions as well. So you probably want to start with the NHT, hear how much you're qualified for. Then you can go on to those other mortgage institutions and say, okay, look at probably two or three of them and say, hey, I'm looking to buy a house. How much will you lend me? That way you come away, you start the process knowing exactly where you are financially. And that, I think that's the best place as well when you're reaching out to the NHD to find out how much you're able to access in your CRTD as well. And let me just explain that a little bit. CRTD is contribution refunds towards deposit. So the NHD generally refunds contributions a year at a time, 8 years after that contribution is made. So we're in the year 2022, so we are now refunding contributions that would have been made in 2014 or earlier. If, however, you're purchasing a house today, the years 2015, 16, 17, 18, I believe up to 19, 5 years, not yet due for refund. But because you're buying a house today, and the NHT understands part of that, of ensuring that we stay on the ground, we realize that individuals need assistance with deposit. We understand that individuals need assistance with taking care of that surveyor's ID report, that valuation report, those legal fees. So those refunds not yet due, or rather those contributions not yet due for refund, the NHT makes them available to you ahead of time, so you can use that to offset some of the costs associated with the purchase. And it actually extends to construction as well. For example, if you have a title that is not up to date, not a title not up to date. Your property taxes, for example, they are not up to date. You can use that CRTD, those contributions, to settle that balance as well. There are some fees associated with getting your building plans approved by the municipal corporation. You can use it to offset some of those costs as well. So the CRTD really is the NHT's way of leveraging contributions that you would have already made to ahead of time to assist in terms of bridging the gap where affordability is concerned.
Okay, great. Thank you. I didn't know that second part that you could use it to pay outstanding property taxes as well. I know that it was a lifesaver for us when we were doing our deposit, because of course it's not. I mean, as with probably a lot of new homeowners, when you start the process is when you start to think about everything that you need. Yes. And that deposit was not easy to find. Yes. So it was good that it was there for us to take advantage of. All right, great. So we've gone through the amount that we can borrow. We've spoken about the fact that we can combine those amounts. So if two persons are eligible for 6.5, then that's a maximum of 13. Are there any limitations to who you can join with? What if it's family, friends, co-workers? Are there any limitations there? Anything that we need to be made aware of? And then the second part to that question is, would the rate differ? I think this was a question by, let me see who it was, Priority Mindset, in terms of interest rate between public and private sector. So,
Okay.
two-part
So
question.
two individuals co-applying, any two individuals can currently co-apply. You'd have heard in the news that we're looking at a three co-applicant structure.
Yeah.
The two will, I'll say at this point, the two will be treated differently. So we're still doing our consultations with our mortgage partners and other stakeholders, and in due time we'll be able to talk about that particular structure. But where the two co-applicants are concerned, it's any two co-applicants, any two individuals. A mortgage is personal, so in that arrangement, every contributor must be qualified in their own right. And the circumstances will vary from individual to individual. So your mortgage is calculated looking at income, which determines interest rate at the NHT, and age, which determines loan tenure. And together we use that to calculate, payback and over what time. So looking at interest rates first, the NHT's lowest income band is between minimum wage and $15,000 per week. Those individuals access a loan at 0%. Between $15,001 and $30,000 per week, those individuals also access a loan at 0%. Between $30,001 and $42,000 per week, we're looking at 2%. And 42,001 and above, we're looking at 4%. So the interest rate structure there, 0024, with the majority of the contributors actually accessing a loan at 0%. So we would first, putting all that in the mix, we have to first look at each individual who is going to be co-applying, and that individual must be qualified in their own right. So not because the NHT necessarily goes up to that maximum of $13 million,
Doesn't mean that they'll be eligible for it.
mean that those two individuals will get that full 13 million. Of course, it will be subject to affordability. So we have to ensure that how much we lend to each individual is within that individual's capacity and ability to make those repayments and make those repayments comfortably on a monthly basis. So we look at that first. We assess individual by individual, and then having done that assessment, we pool how much they would both qualify for at the end of the day. Notwithstanding though, Jermaine, I should point out that the NHT has what we call a combined income facility. So let's say we're both co-applying, and you qualify for the full $6.5 million, but based off my income and based off my age, I can only get $5 million. So there's $1.5 million there that I would not have been able to access based on my financial circumstances. The NHT will, if the contributors so desire, look at your income now, Jermaine, and to see whether or not you could actually absorb that 1.5 million that I am not able to access. And if that is the case, then you could find that you now will end up borrowing 6.5 plus 1.5. Pardon my math, I'm a little slow, but that sounds like 8 million.
Yes.
And that goes with my 5. So there are circumstances where you could actually still end up with that 13 million. So we always say up to 6.5 million per person, and of course subject to affordability.
Okay, great. That's important to note. So are there any particular conditions for self-employed persons? What if they're self-employed? Let's say I work 9 to 5, but my wife is self-employed. Is it the same process? Once she's doing her contributions, can show that she has steady income? I guess that would be some sort of maybe financial statements. I don't know how you validate this for a self-employed person. That's always been one of the questions that we get. How do these standard policies change for those who are self-employed?
Well, no difference in treatment between the individual that is PAYE versus individual that is self-employed. Uh, just 2 points to note: where contributions are made for a self-employed person, those aren't made on a monthly basis, they're made on a quarterly basis. And so the NHT will look at two quarterly payments in terms of determining, current contribution status. So once the last two quarterly payments have been made and the individual satisfied the general 1 year, then you're good to go as a self-employed person. When it
Yeah.
comes to affordability now, self-employed persons are required to file on an annual basis, an annual return, which really, well, two documents are filed at the beginning of the financial year. They file a declaration of how much they believe they're going to make this year, and at the end of the year, then they file a real declaration as to how much was actually made, an SO2 and an SO4 form, they're called. So those documents really determine that individual's affordability vis-a-vis the individual that is PAYE, which would have the last three pay slips to be able to submit.
Okay. Okay. All right. Great. So, let's see if we have any other questions here. So talk to me a little bit about, so we mentioned the NHT refunds briefly being available to you after 8 years. So right now, your contributions up to 2014, you'd be eligible to get that as a refund. Is there any particular way that you need to apply for those? Is there a specific time of year, or is just once you get to those 8 years, then you can start applying? Can you tell us about that for a few moments?
Sure. So your refund becomes available in the 8th year after the contribution is made. And individuals can apply online via the NHT's website, nht.gov.jm. Actually, applications are only accepted online. And those, it pretty much is a 5 minute process that asks you your basic demographic information. It asks you a little bit about the year or years you're applying for, where were you working during those years. It's really is just a way of matching what you say to what our documents in-house also say. So once you do that, it takes up just about 5 minutes. You can have those monies sent to your bank account. And if you're not the holder of a bank account, we have existing relationships with 3 remittance agencies: JN, VMBS, and JMMB. So you can also collect the refunds via those remittance agencies for a nominal fee as well. Or, as I said, you may have it sent directly to your bank account. When can you apply? You can apply anytime. So refunds for 2014 would have become available January 1. And we find a lot of persons, January 1, they're applying. And no
Yeah.
shame in that. That's fine. Christmas was all of 60 days long. Month of December was all of 60. Fine. You can apply at any time, though, throughout the year. I always say, though, Jermaine, if you do not have a specific plan, or if you're going to go into the market to buy a house, use those refunds to assist that process. Not because they're due, you take them and January 1 and we refund them by 15 working days. Generally, we do it in 10. So chances are by January 10, January 11, that money is in your account. And by January 12, January 13, you don't know what happened to it.
Yep. All right. I
Yeah.
mean, in that case, it was used to supplement salary. As you said, January is pretty long. But we actually, and I mean, persons in the investment space encourage persons to invest that money. So it's not like you're just, taking it as a part of your salary, but investing it means that, okay, you're putting it to work. I like your alternative. If you don't know what you're going to do with it, maybe best to leave it alone or use it as a part of your home buying process. I mean, I fully agree with that as well.
Yes, every dollar counts.
Yes, it does. It does. All right, Troyan is asking, what if the person is both employed and they own a business while contributing? Does that maybe maximize the amount that they're able to get? What if I make, 100,000 with my own company and I earn 100,000? Is that still counted as one income or two? Meaning, I guess he's asking if you can get the 13 million.
All
If you
right.
have two incomes.
Let me put it this way. The law says, let me start there. The law says once you earn in any income, self-employed, PAYE, or both, you need to make those statutory payments on. I think someone from THA could better advise as to
Yeah.
not necessarily all additional income will carry all statutory obligations, because I believe there's a whole discussion about whether you're
I've,
at the
I've,
threshold
I've,
already.
I've always been confused about that, honestly. So, yeah.
If you've reached the threshold already based on the first income, then you won't necessarily pay income tax again on the second one. It's just some deductions you would make on that. You can always consult with THA for what specifically. But really, once you earn income in Jamaica, you should declare that. What you may find sometimes, though, is that the first income is not enough for you to capitalize on the full NHT benefit, whether it is the full 6.5, or in the case of you're buying an NHT scheme unit and you're looking to access that full up to $15 million that the NHT makes available there. So it's always best to declare and pay on both, because you really can't get to the loan interview process now and your loan officer says, okay, based off your income, you only qualify for X amount. And then you go, oh, but you know what? Also, I'm self-employed. I make X amount additionally. Can you also
Yeah.
use this? No, we can't use it at that time, because we would have had to, be able to establish that one, it's legitimate, and two, it's income that can be relied on as it relates
Yeah.
to, you know making calculating a mortgage, or calculating affordability off, because it can't be that you make an additional 50 grand some months, and you make that 50 grand in January, but you don't make another 50 grand again until September. And then
Yeah.
the NHT or whichever mortgage institution calculates affordability based off that fluctuating and that inconsistent income. What you will find is that, some months you'll be able to pay the mortgage and in others you won't be able to. And that's never a good thing, not being able to make those mortgage obligations. So we have to ensure that all income that is being used to factor in a loan is income that is legitimate, is income that is declared, and it's income that you would have paid contributions on.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So, in your perspective, Dwayne, what are some of the most underutilized NHT services? Now, I don't know if there's any outside of what we've spoken about before, but are there any things that you wish, persons here would know about, take advantage of, anything to that effect?
Sure. We touched on one already, contribution refunds towards deposit. Your refunds not yet due. People say it's the best kept secret. I don't know how
It
it's a
is.
secret,
It is.
but you talk about it all the time. But you use up those refunds not yet due to bridge whatever shortfall that you may have. Even if you don't have a shortfall, use them just the same, because it's less money you're borrowing as it relates to
Fully agree.
your loan at the end of the day. So use that up. I'd also like to add as well, the NHT has a home grant facility that is up to $2.5 million that,
Yes.
that the NHT makes
Someone was asking
available.
about that just now, the home grant. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, so that's now for the contributor who is in our lowest income band, earning between minimum wage and $15,000 per week, and they would have contributed to the NHT for 7 years. The NHT makes a grant of $2.5 million available to that person. A grant, as its name suggests, it's free. You don't have to pay that back. The only condition is that you can't get the grant by itself. The grant really is to supplement whatever loan amount
Okay,
that you would
okay.
be eligible for. The other one I would want to touch on, so we add our disability grant. That's now for our mortgagors who have a disability, and also mortgagors who have persons with a disability living in the household. The NHT currently makes available $150,000 to assist with retrofitting the property, to make it a little bit more comfortable for the person with the disability. So Germany, it can't be your cousin who lives in the neighboring community or a couple street down from you.
Come on.
To claim this for, the person has to live in the household, so it is really to benefit that person.
Okay.
I say currently because come July 1, we're looking to double that amount to
Thank you.
300,000.
Thank you.
We're looking to double that amount to 300,000. So there's a home grant, there's a disability grant. The NHT has a cluster housing program. I like it because we understand the challenges as it relates to buying property on the open market and buying property alone. So take us back to that discussion we had earlier about that $6.5 million that can be broken up into 2.5 million for land and 4 million for construction. The NHD's cluster housing program allows you to pool with at least two other persons or 17 other persons to identify land, buy the land, have that land subdivided, and to do construction after. So you will understand this, Jeremy, that 6.5 million going on the open market to buy something, you're going to be a little hard pressed to find something.
Yep. Yeah.
However, on the cluster, you pool your 6.5 with somebody else's 6.5 and somebody else's 6.5 and somebody else's
That's what
6.5.
I'm talking about.
Minimum 3 lots, maximum 9 lots. And on each lot, you can have two mortgages. So up to two persons can co-apply for each lot. Minimum 3 lots, maximum 9. And what happens there is you, as I said, you identify a piece of land of a decent size that you can subdivide it and everybody is comfortable with their own share. And if you want to perhaps engage this professional services of, one contractor who's going, let me start, one architect who's going to do one design for all of you, one contractor who's going to do one construction for all of you. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like doing this housing thing wholesale. You're able to buy in bulk, you're able to procure services in bulk rather than trying to do it alone. You find that you're able to stretch that dollar a
Yeah.
little bit more. I think already doing construction gives you a little bit of advantage as it relates to maximizing on the benefit. So
Yeah.
imagine now being able to pool that with somebody else. You're talking about one legal fee. You're talking about one architect cost. You're talking about one shared cost as it relates to the contractors. And what we see individuals do is some persons they get to the part of buying land, putting in the infrastructure, have it subdivided, and then everybody goes their separate ways. There is that option as well because perhaps what Jermaine wants is very
I'm going to do
opulent.
on the basketball court and swimming pool and all of those things.
Right, and Germany is able to secure additional financing to be able to do that. Probably that is not my reality. So our relationship may end at buying the land and having it subdivided, and we can build
Okay.
our own retaining wall and separate us from each other. So you have your own title for your own parcel. I have my own title for my own
Nice.
parcel, and then you either, as I said, have different arrangements for construction, or we do the same for the construction process as it relates to buying those services together and maximizing and stretching that dollar a little bit more. Any
Perfect.
other benefit? The NHT also has a solar water heater. That's $250,000, repayable at an interest rate, I believe, of 4%, over a 5-year period. That for the existing homeowner who wants to, you're not necessarily at solar panels, but you probably want to start with a solar water heater facility. The NHT has that product available as well. For individuals who earn $52,000 per week and below, the NHT has entered into an agreement with our credit unions under what we call a microfinancing facility, where persons can access an additional $1.5 million that they can use for pretty much any housing related expenditure. If you're doing incremental construction, you just want to put on another bathroom, or you want that $1.5 million to assist with your deposit, you want to use it for your fees, any housing related expenditure. As I said, once you're earning below $42,000 per week, you can reach out to a total of 11 credit unions and access that amount. The NHT also has a parent assist facility. So where parents probably have gone through life and not access your NHT benefit, either because they purchased their home through other means, or perhaps it just was not a priority for them, or they ran out of time and were not able to use that benefit. They can pass on that benefit to their child, and the child can take that parent's eligible loan amount and go on the open market and look something to purchase. The good thing about that is, well, the condition is that the child must, of course, is subject to affordability. So the child who is benefiting must be able to demonstrate that they're able to repay both their NHT loan amount and their parents' amount that they're accessing. And the good thing about that, though, is whereas if it was two individuals co-applying normally, the mortgages would be calculated based on their individual ages, where the child now is accessing the parents' amount, then both mortgages are calculated using the child's age.
Nice.
The child is younger, which means you have a longer repayment period, which means those loan amounts, that loan amount and those mortgage repayments are stretched over a longer period of time, and so they are more affordable and likely more comfortable for that individual.
Yeah.
Those are some of the main ones I can think of.
That's a lot, though.
I could dig a little deeper and find a whole lot more, but I think those are the main ones that I think I would want your viewers to take away this evening.
Great. Thank you. So Ricardo is asking, what's the probability for a 53-year-old self-employed person getting a loan that is pooled together with their son? I think you kind of answered that question with the parent assist facility. That's the one I'd look at, right? That's the one that he should go with.
Right. That is if the parent is helping the child to buy the house. If both if both are buying it together and will maintain interest in the property together, then we're looking at two different loan amounts that we would have to calculate based on both individual circumstances. So Ricardo there would be looking at your son's age, your son's income, and your son's affordability in one sense. We'll be looking at your age, income, determining your affordability in another sense, and then we will pool those amounts together. So at 53 years old, you would have up until age 70 to repay. So you're looking at a loan tenure there of 17 years. Also, on the child's side, you have up until age 70 or 40 years, whichever is applicable.
Okay, great. I mean, I've learned so much from you this evening, Dwayne. It's awesome. I'm checking to see if there are any other questions, because we've gone through all of the ones that I had prepared. So I'm just checking to see if there's anything that maybe was asked that was missed. Did we address the question of interest rates? What is the current interest rate from NHT? Did we speak about that?
I think we did. We range between 0 and 4% at its highest.
We did. And you mentioned the different bands of payment as well.
Right.
Ramin was asking, what's the minimum deposit required to access a $6.5 million loan for building on your own land? So what's the minimum deposit required to get that amount? Also, what's the minimum deposit required to access the $2.5 million to purchase land?
Okay. All right, let me start with that last one first. So, 2 point, if you're looking at buying land, the deposit would not be determined by the NHT. The deposit would be determined by the
Yeah,
vendor, and that could be 5 or up
10%.
to 10%. So the vendor will first determine how much deposit that would be required, and then the NHT will make once the deposit is more than 5%, then the NHT will make that full 2.5 million available. On the construction side now, we would not be talking about a deposit when it comes to build on own land. We would just be making that full $6.5 million available to you for construction. I should point out though that the NHT would not make that $6.5 million available in one go. We have to we have to be wise there. We don't want you to say, okay, 6.5, I'm going to do construction, and then it
You use up
as
all of
someone
that
asks
money.
me one day, can I use it to buy two taxi and put on the road and then,
Mhm.
take the return from the taxi and build a house? Not quite. So the 6.5 has to actually go towards construction. So what you
Yeah,
find that the NHT does when it comes to persons who are building is that we disperse the funds in tranches. So your first $2 million is supposed to do your foundation and bring you up to block height, and we disperse that 2.5 million. When you're done, you tell us you're done. We assign a project officer to you. The project officer comes and makes checks to ensure that the monies were
in fact,
used for what they were supposed to do. And also, your project officer is also, while they don't work for the mortgager, they represent the NHT. But you do find that what happens is that your project officer is able to spot things, and if things are going awry, you're able to stop that real early rather than you expending all $6.5 million and the
yeah,
house look like this at the end of the day. You know? So the project officer checks that the contractor is building according to the building plan, and to ensure that whatever the amounts are to cover, actually is covered, and really ensures that at the end of the NHT disbursing those funds, you have a structure that we call habitable, and that you
great,
don't end up building, and what you have at the end of the day you can't live in.
great, great. All right, so hopefully that helps you, Romain. Let us know if you have any other questions. I think Rainiel, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, was asking, are there any additional steps to the process that we mentioned in terms of the pooled loan? I think you mentioned that already. The mortgage is personal, so each person has to go through pretty much the same steps, but there is nothing additional. It's just once they both go through their process, then it'll be treated as a pooled mortgage. Okay, I think we covered
That's
that. We answered Kevin's question about solar panels. We spoke about that being under the home improvement loan. All right, Judy was asking where can you get information on the NHT schemes that are available?
on our website. There is a tab called upcoming developments, and you will find the list of schemes and the timelines that we're looking at, where delivery of those schemes is concerned. Generally, though, I would say check our social media pages, because we will always post there when schemes are actually available, and we will indicate when individuals can come to the open house and look at them, and when individuals can apply. An application is also done online for one of those NHT schemes. I can say that in the next few weeks, you should be seeing the NHT advertise two projects in St. Catherine. Um, Silverson Estate Phase 4, those are 2 bedroom, 1 bathrooms. And in our joint venture partnership with Housing Agency of Jamaica, HAJ, the NHT will also be selling some units at Catherine's Estate. And those are 1 bedrooms detached and 1 bedroom duplex units. So I believe in the next few weeks you'll be seeing the NHT advertise those. You can always check our social media pages and check the press generally. We'll put out the information there as well.
Okay. Does NHT post information on land that's available? I say Orville asking which area can you get land for 2.5 million? Does NHT available?
No, we don't. We don't want to take away Judy and the other realtors' work. So, you reach out to your realtor who can better assist you in terms of finding those lands. But the NHT, we do not only sell units, we also sell land. And so you may find that sometimes the NHT is doing what we call a mixed development, where there's a combination of land and units. This especially happens in areas, for example, like a Manchester, where we know persons prefer to build rather than to buy houses. So it really depends on what our housing demand survey says is a preference for individuals in that particular parish. That determines, what we call our housing solution mix. So from time to time, the NHD will also sell land, but generally, you want to reach out to your realtor to assist you with finding land.
Okay, great. All right, Omar is asking up to how much can he access to build on a home that he already owns? I believe that would be
All right,
home
I'd have to probe a little bit more. You say a home you already own. It on the surface of it sounds like home improvement. So we will be looking at $2.5 million. But we could talk a little bit more about what is the state of that home. Is it just use the term loosely, livable? you know, and then we can get into a discussion as to whether it is really home improvement or whether you may need to access your full $6.5 million. So there are some exceptions that the NHT may make, and you can always we can always get into a discussion about the state of the home, or the house rather, not the home here, the state of the house, whether it is probably it's under construction and it inherited it, but it is not habitable. So that individual in that circumstance may be able to access their full NHT benefit. So we could get into a discussion generally about the state of the house, and that could better assist as it relates to how much that individual will be able to access.
Okay, great. All right, Omar, so be sure to follow up there. Ricardo is asking again. So in his case, so he was the one asking about parent and child coming together. The second part of the question says he's overseas. Does he need to be in Ireland to do the paperwork, or can his mom sign on his behalf? So let's say that he wanted to, I think in his case, wanting to work with a parent, he's overseas, parent is here. How would that work? Or both would have to be in the country? Because you said before that you could contribute when you're outside of the country. So in general, how would you be able to complete paperwork if you're not in the country?
Where the loan process is, the NHT will accept a power of attorney. Where you can appoint someone to act on your behalf in the transaction. I think, however, technology affords us to be able to do some aspects of the process remotely. For example, the loan interview, etc. I think we would be able to do remotely. But as it relates to signing, I believe a power of attorney could work in that case, where you could appoint someone to act on your behalf to sign.
Okay, great. Purpose 20 is asking, does a dead parent have to leave a will stating a handover of the benefits? I guess that's the same parent assist, like if somebody will their NHT benefits. I don't know.
I think that's a substantive question, and no, you cannot will your NHT benefit. Remember, your NHT benefit at the end of the day is a loan. And so a loan is calculated based off certain conditions, primarily the ability to repay. So for an individual to access an NHT loan, even if you're signing over that benefit to somebody else, you have to be alive, and you have to be current with those NHT contributions as well.
So then I have a question there. If my parent was contributing, but they weren't able to claim their CRT or any benefit at all, what happens to those contributions? Would I be able to get those refunds or anything like that?
Though that you can will. So you can will contributions not yet claimed. If they're not handed over via will, then the NHT will treat it according to the general laws of intestacy, where it is, you'd have to apply through the courts for letters of administration to determine who is the rightful owner of the dead person's estate. And yeah, the NHT will thereafter, on those letters from the courts and on those determination from the court as to who is the true owner of the estate, the individual thereafter can apply for a refund of those contributions.
Okay. Right. Yes, CM, you definitely need to watch the video from the start. We covered a lot in this video, so be sure to check that out. Watch the replay. All right, so CM is asking, how much will Silverson Estate Homes be selling for when it is released? I believe that you say will be published on the website or on social media.
Right, you should see that in another couple of weeks. Don't have those prices in front of me. I don't. Yeah, no, I don't have those prices at the moment.
I figured as much. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Priority Mindset is saying, I wanted to pay a lump sum on my principal. Can I pay it online? Or so I guess in general, I'll expand that question to say, let's say that you have an existing loan and you want to clear it. How are you able to pay a lump sum on that principal? Because I know sometimes there are restrictions to doing that. Maybe you have to give prior notice or something.
Well, for the NHT, you can make the payment, but please inform us after that what was your intention where this lump sum payment is concerned. Otherwise, the account goes into what we call prepayment. So we will just calculate your monthly payments and prepay those monthly payments up to wherever those funds take us. Different from when the individual has an intention to pay specifically towards the principal. So if that is your intention, once the payments have been made, reach out to us immediately and let us know that that was your intention, and the NHT will apply the payments to the principal as opposed to applying it to the monthly payments going forward.
Okay. That's good, at least, because I know for some banks they don't allow you to just prepay. Like, you can't just put the money on your loan balance. You have to let them know, and some say you need to advise at least 90 days before or 60 days before, something like that. I mean, persons don't normally know when they'll have a lump sum coming in. It just, kind of falls into your lap kind of thing.
Yes, but let us know for accounting purposes, so we put it as you intend.
All right, great. So I think we've covered all the questions. Thank you guys so much. I believe throughout this live, almost 200 persons dropped in, so that's good. So Dwayne, I'll ask you, are there any final words, anything that you want to leave with us? I'll definitely encourage persons to check out the NHT's YouTube channel, because I noticed you're doing some content, some very short, pieces of content over there, answering some key questions, etc. But is there anything that you want to leave with our audience here today?
I'd say generally home ownership is possible. It requires planning, however, and it requires you starting that conversation with the persons who can help you and help you plan. I made the analogy somewhere in the discussion that it's not buying groceries where you just, okay, you get up today and say, I want a 2-bedroom
Definitely not.
house, and you go out and you come back home with a set of keys. No, it doesn't quite work like that. So do your research, find out what are the legal obligations you'll have, find out what are the financial sources available to you, so you can better understand when you're going shopping for that property that you shop within your means. And generally, your first home doesn't have to be your dream home. I know sometimes we kind of delay the process thinking that I don't want a studio, I know me, cute, I don't want a 1-bedroom, I want better than that. But sometimes the studio is where you probably need to start. And Germany will tell them, of course, real estate appreciates in value real quick. So the studio that you buy today for whatever amount, the kids today will say, today's price is not yesterday's price. So it's going to appreciate in value. And for some of us, it may mean that we can plan and buy. I mean, for me personally, it took me 3 years of making that first purchase. For somebody else, it may be one. For somebody else, it may be 10. We're not all starting from the same point. Actually, it never took me 3 years to not 5 years. It took me 5 years of planning. We're not all starting from the same point.
Yeah.
Don't judge your circumstances based off somebody else's experience. Go into the NHT, go into your mortgage provider, sit down, have that conversation, find out what are your realities, find out what are the benefits for you, and then reach out to get the necessary professional help from your realtor or from your legal conveyancing attorney, and just start somewhere. Start with where you can afford and continue thereafter. Have a plan as to how you're going to convert that, how you're going to improve on that. Home ownership is not a destination, it is a journey. Even after you've bought what you may think is your dream home, there is still maintenance that you have to consider. So it's a journey.
Yeah, agreed. So I see 2 questions here kind of snuck in, even though we're pretty much done. Shams is asking, will NHT rates be increasing?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. And does the BOJ interest rate impact the NHT in any way?
No.
Okay. All right, great. So thank you so much, Dwayne. Really appreciate the time that you took here today. I expect persons maybe watching this on the replay. If you have questions, post them in the comments under the video. And what we likely do is when we have a certain amount of questions, maybe we just host another session to just get all of them answered, or maybe we do the research, get in touch with Dwayne, get the answers, and then forward them to you under the comment section. As usual, I'll ask you to just, as he said, do your research. We covered a whole lot of information here today. We also have 2 videos, one to speak about the process of buying your first home, and then the next one was the total cost of home ownership, where we break down the different costs that you'll have, so you can have an idea as to what the purchase process will cost you. And then, of course, if you need any recommendations, reach out to us. We'll share all of our contacts with you. We don't really show preference, so you get to choose who you prefer to work with. And yes, Dwayne, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. I'll list the contacts for the NHT in the description. And from what I know, you're on all platforms, so persons can feel free to reach out there as well. All right. Thank you so much, Dwayne.
You're most welcome, and thanks very much for having me.
All right, awesome. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching the video. Remember to leave us a like, please. It's it greatly helps us. We're trying to grow our channel. Also, remember to join our community groups. Telegram group is growing at a really fast pace. You're more than welcome to join us. We will have a stock review this Wednesday for iCreate Limited. You want to definitely check that out. And on Fridays at 6:30, we have our weekly stock market review. We have a lot of interesting updates that are coming, so stay tuned to our social media for those updates as they come. If there's anything that we might have missed that you're hoping to know, just ask it in the comments and we'll get to it. Thank you guys so much. Please enjoy the rest of your day.